Hello to all my dear followers. Today I bring you the first chapter of a new fanfic for the channel. Welcome to What If Naruto Mastered the Forgotten Art of Sealing. I only ask for your like and a comment to bring more videos like this, and I'll make a playlist where I'll post all the chapters of this fanfic. Without further ado, enjoy.
Naruto walked through the streets of Konoha, still saddened by the fact that he failed his graduation exam for the second time. Naruto, you failed. Naruto thought this and chuckled at the thought. What else is new? Naruto didn't pay much attention to where he was going or to the villagers who were looking at him with hatred in their eyes. Suddenly, Naruto found himself in front of a story he had never seen before. He decided to enter the story and found two men auguring over a tag. Look, I don't think it's a storage seal, the brown-haired man said. It looks more like a chakra seal, and I'm telling you, it's a storage seal, said the man with the deep, voluminous voice. You know what if we activate it and find out what it is? The other nodded in agreement as they began to apply the tag. Naruto glimpsed the seal and felt a strange tug deep within himself, almost as if the seal were calling to him. Stop! Naruto shouted. The two men stopped and looked at Naruto with surprise in their eyes. It's an explosive tag. The man looked at each other and chuckled. Look, kid, we don't need a little kid. Try telling us what. The man paused as he looked back at the stamp. He's right. His friend looked at him and then back at the label. Whoa, how did we miss that? He said as he gently picked up the tag. Well, it's an early version of an explosive seal. He said this with a thoughtful expression. I haven't seen a label like this in a long time. So if we mistake it for something, especially considering we were arguing, it's pretty easy to make a mistake like that. Yeah. But we still almost ruined ourselves and our shop, his friend said as he looked at Naruto. That would be quite a statement. We just moved here and moved on. Excuse us, we need to introduce ourselves. My name is Ishiki, Consciousness. And this is my brother Denpa, Electromagnetic Wave. Naruto Uzumaki is my name. Naruto told the two brothers. I have a question for you, Naruto, Denpa said with a raised eyebrow. How did you know it was an explosive tag? Naruto just smiled and put his hands behind his head. I don't know. It's just that the seal looked like it had explosive spelling on it, Naruto said. But the brothers didn't shut up. Okay. Tell me, do you know what this is? Ishiki said this while holding up 3 different tags with different seals. Naruto looked at them and a few seconds after looking at them he began to speak. This is a sealing tag, Naruto said, pointing at the tag. This is a chakra sealing tag and this is another explosive tag, but the ones we use today. The siblings were amazed by Naruto. Kid, you've got them good, Denpa said with an amused smile. Listen, do you know what sealing techniques, FUINJUTSU, are? Naruto closed his eyes in concentration. Sorry, I think I fell asleep during that part of Irika's lecture. Naruto said this, and the siblings were once again shocked. This kid has no idea what FUINJUTSU is, and yet he still managed to do everything right. Ishiki thought and looked at his brother, who nodded. Denpa went to the back and came back with a dusty book. Here we want you to have this, Ishiki said. It's a book on FUINJUTSU. Naruto looked at the book and opened it only to close it again and try to return it to its owner. It seems boring, Naruto said, much to surprise the owners of the story. Boring. I'll have you know that FUINJUTSU is possibly one of the hardest things to master, Denpa said. Hell, there aren't many people who can be considered masters of the seals. The reason is because people don't recognize the importance of FUINJUTSU. If someone were to master FUINJUTSU completely, dedicate most of their lives to learning the art, then there's no telling what they could do. After explaining all of this, Ishiki and Denpa noticed a strange look in Naruto's eyes. You mean FUINJUTSU could be stronger than ninjutsu? Naruto said in amazement. Yes. Denpa just said for his brother to intervene. But it all depends on the type of seal you're using, Ishiki said. If someone uses the correct seal and places it on their body, then the answer would be yes. But the problem once again is that almost no one wants to learn that forgotten art. I'll master him, Naruto shouted. I don't know what you seem like a weakling to me, Denpa said. I don't appreciate you being able to handle it. I'm Naruto Uzumaki and I never go back on my word. If I say I'm going to master this, then I will. Naruto said this, and before anyone could stop him, Naruto ran out the door. Denpa and Ishiki looked at each other and smiled. We finally found that dwarf, Denpa said, popping his neck. I thought we'd never find him. Okay, so it took longer than planned, but at least we found him, Ishiki said. They thought keeping his Uzumaki name would keep him safe. How sad. If anything, they probably made him an even bigger target. At least we're giving the Uzumaki clan a chance to come back. Denpa nodded. Now, how about we get out of here? Denpa said as he began packing some of the merchandise. Of course, Ishiki said. Stay safe, young Uzumaki, because the world outside these walls will be silent, unforgivable. But that was when he saw his brother packing away a batch of seals. What are you doing, you fool? Ishiki yelled as he grabbed a metal bowl and began hitting Denpa over the head with it. Those are explosive tags that aren't supposed to go near hot coals. Grabbing the bowl from his brother, Denpa proceeded to hit Ishiki over the head with it. You didn't have to hit me. Denpa screamed until his brother grabbed him by the neck. Denpa did the same, and the two began strangling each other when a customer walked in, looked around, and slowly walked out. XXX. Naruto arrived at his apartment and sat on his bed with the book in his lap. Techniques stronger than ninjutsu. Naruto shuddered at the thought. He opened the book and found a message written inside. Naruto, we gave you this book for one reason and one reason only, to help your clan return. You see, Naruto, you are likely the last Uzumaki left behind a powerful clan that made villages tremble in fear and could rival even that of the Senju, Thousand Skills or Thousand Hands, and Uchiha clans, but that time has passed. By the time you read this, we will be gone. But rest easy, for we will meet again throughout your life. Until then, train yourself to master FUINJUTSU like your ancestors before you. Naruto, you will have a long and difficult life ahead of you. Use what you learned to protect yourself, your friends, and your allies. Denpa and Ishiki. Naruto reread what the message said and still couldn't believe what he was reading. I was part of a clan. Naruto said, still in shock at what the message said. I need to see this. Naruto said this as he left and ran towards the Hokage Tower, but when he got there he found that Sarutobi was in a meeting and wasn't up to bother him. So Naruto went to the next best thing, the library. When Naruto got inside, he sneaked past the librarian and went to the back of the library where they kept books about different clans in Konoha or attached to it. Naruto looked through the books and found one about the Senju clan. He took it out and continued looking for Uzumaki, but when he got to the U, he found a book missing. Damn! Naruto thought, cursing himself for not finding the book. He looked at the Senju clan book and began flipping through it. The Senju clan was master of all skills, from ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. Naruto whispered to himself. This earned them the name San no Te or Matsu Ikazoku, the clan with 1,000 skills. The only other clan that could rival them, like the Uchiha and the Dash. Naruto cursed once more when he found the other name had been ripped out. He skipped a page and found himself in a section describing Hashirama Senju and everything he did for Konoha. Naruto's grip on the book tightened as he felt a few tears trying to escape. I was so close to finding out more about my family, Naruto thought as he put the book down and snuck out of the library once more. Why would anyone go to the trouble of trying to get rid of information on the Uzumaki clan? Naruto walked into his apartment and looked at the book once more. He picked it up and began reading through the book, poring over every inch of the book, every corner, and every word like it was gold. He became so immersed in the book that he didn't realize night had fallen, but Naruto continued reading on the subject of FUINJUTSU until Naruto finally collapsed from exhaustion. Naruto slept wherever he fell, but he still held onto that book as if it would suddenly float away and he would die. XXX. Irika walked through the streets of Konoha. 2 more weeks and then the next academy students come. However, Irika until he spotted someone new just by seeing the tips of his hair. Naruto, what are you doing now? Irika asked, but saw that he couldn't believe Naruto was carrying a book that had a bookmark in the middle. Naruto was also carrying a rectangular box. Naruto, where did you get the book? Oh, some people gave it to me, so I've been reading it, Naruto said, but became confused when he saw Irika's surprised face. Naruto, reading. The world has come to an end. Iruka thought as he looked at Naruto. In any case, I should go. I have a lot more reading to do. Naruto said this as he began walking through the streets once more with his book firmly clutched in his hands. Is that really Naruto? Iruka asked himself as he looked at his most hyperactive student, Triple X. 2 weeks later, Iruka looked at his new class and sighed. I have most of the clan heirs here, not to mention the last Uchiha. Iruka simply hung his head, but then raised it when he noticed no one was there. Wait a minute. Where is Naruto? Iruka was about to go find the little prankster when suddenly the door opened. Iruka turned to see who it was and saw Naruto, but wearing something completely different than his normal clothes. Instead of wearing his normal orange jumpsuit, Naruto wore an orange, and red shirt that went down to his wrists and hung loosely, but right where his hands were wrapped in bandages and right where the collar joined Naruto's neck was cut open. Naruto's pants were unchanged except that he was now wearing all black. On the back of Naruto's shirt was a giant swirl like you would find on any jonin or chunin vest, but instead of being small, it was as big as Naruto's back, making it look like a maelstrom. Naruto's hair looked like he had just gotten out of bed. Sorry, Iruka-sensei, I fell asleep, Naruto said with a smile. Naruto just looked around at all the stunned faces and just smiled like a fox. What I thought would be to try something new this year. Iruka just shook his head and told Naruto to take a seat. All right, now that everyone's here, why don't we start by asking some questions? Iruka said as he looked around and saw Naruto smiling at him. All right, Naruto. Let's see what you have to say. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I want to become Hokage one day. Naruto said, and Iruka just smiled knowing Naruto's speech by heart. But before he could ask anyone else, Naruto spoke once more. But I also want to find out everything I can about a certain clan. That brought confused looks around. I wonder what clan he could be talking about. Iruka thought to himself. Okay, how about you, Nara? Iruka said, pointing at the boy who was trying to sleep. Annoying. Shikamaru grunted. My name is Shikamaru Nara, and anything else would be very troublesome to talk about. With that, Shikamaru went back to sleep. Okay, that was eye-opening. Iruka thought as he looked around the room and found that everyone else was either not paying attention or staring at Sasuke except for one Hyuga girl who was stealing glances at Naruto. Okay, forget about introductions for now. How about we get to jutsu? Iruka said and smiled seeing everyone's excited looks. First, does anyone know any jutsu? Iruka saw 4 hands appear, but the one that caught his attention was Naruto. I wonder what the little rascal has planned. Iruka thought with an inward smile. All right, knowing the Uchiha, we should probably take this outside. The classroom stood up and began filing out. Everyone began to line up and form almost a semicircle around the 4. Okay, who wants to go first? Iruka said as he looked around and watched Shikamaru walk ahead. It would be too troublesome to watch the others act, so I'll go first and then go to sleep. Shikamaru said as he clasped his hands on the tiger seal. Cage main, shadow imitation. Shikamaru declared lazily. Shikamaru's shadow stretched forward and connected with Iruka's. Shikamaru began to do a dance that made him look like a dancing monkey, but Iruka was forced to do the same. Fine, I get the point, Iruka shouted. Shikamaru smiled as his shadow shrank back toward him. Okay, next. Iruka watched as Choji walked forward eating a bag of chips. Baika no jutsu, multi-size technique, Choji said through a mouthful of potato chips. Suddenly, Choji expanded like a balloon and began rolling around the area like a rock. Choji stopped and shrank back to his normal size. Sasuke walked over and almost immediately his small fan club started cheering for their beloved Sasuke. Sasuke navigated through a series of hand signs until he stopped on the tiger seal. Ketan Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Sasuke announced this as he released a fireball. Everyone was impressed that Sasuke did such a powerful jutsu and wasn't even a ninja yet. Naruto then walked forward and everything became really quiet, almost deathly silent. I can't mess this up, Naruto thought. Iruka, I'm going to need you to show this. Iruka was a little hesitant to let Naruto use a jutsu on him, but he had no choice. Naruto started kicking his legs with his eyes closed and took a deep breath. His eyes shot open and Naruto disappeared. Iruka looked around, but all he could feel was a sudden gust of wind that blew past him. He turned around and saw Naruto smirk at him as he touched his shoulder and disappeared once more. Iruka felt the wind blow past him again, but this time in reverse. Very good speed, Naruto, but that doesn't really classify as dashed up. Iruka stopped talking as his body froze. Iruka couldn't speak and could barely move. He looked back at Naruto, who was holding a tiger seal with one hand. What if he's using a one-handed seal? Does that mean? Iruka looked at his arm and sure enough saw black symbols scattered across it. I can't believe it worked, Naruto said with obvious excitement, but his excitement ended when Iruka applied some more chakra to his arm and broke Naruto's seal. Oh, come on Iruka. Why did you have to run away from that? Naruto said this with a pout as Iruka approached him with surprise in his eyes. Naruto, when did you learn to do FUINJUTSU? Iruka asked, still in shock. Oh, not long ago, Naruto said with a smile as he lifted one of his legs into the air. I put a seal on my leg to help me move faster with just a little bit of chakra added instead of building chakra in the bottom of my feet and wasting more chakra. The only problem with this is that it forces me to go in a linear direction. So if someone knew that, they could just dodge around it. That seal I put on you was meant to paralyze someone, but if they put enough chakra through their body, they can break it. Naruto looked ecstatic that he could finally show off his new seals, but Iruka, on the other hand, was amazed beyond belief. The worst kid in the entire class is able to understand the most complex thing in the world as if it were second nature. Iruka thought as he watched Naruto smile. If Naruto keeps this up, then we might have another seal master. Naruto, tell me, do you know how dangerous that is? Iruka said sternly. One thing can go wrong, and then that's it for you. Naruto just looked at Iruka and smiled. That's it, Iruka. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Naruto said this as he turned around to live behind a stunned Iruka. Naruto was excited because for the first time, thanks to his training in FUINJUTSU, Naruto was neck and neck with Sasuke in the skill of the jutsu. The only problem Naruto has discovered in his FUINJUTSU training is that he still puts a lot of chakra into the seals. He understood the concept. In fact, he developed some new seals. It was just that he always put too much chakra into them. They still work the way they are supposed to, but they consume a large amount of chakra, which even drained Naruto pretty quickly. The other problem was when the seal would explode, it would send Naruto to the hospital with burns and chunks of flesh missing, but besides that, everything was going well for Naruto. The thing that was still keeping Naruto from being on top was the test on various things like what chakra was or who helped make Konoha what it is today. Naruto couldn't focus much on those, but thanks to his training, he was able to focus a little better. Now today was the day the test to see who became genin was now, and Naruto was determined to never fail it again. I can't fail, not now, Naruto told himself again. He remembered when he was taken to the Hokage because of his hidden FUINJUTSU training. XXX. Flashback. Naruto, Iruka told me that you've been training in the use of FUINJUTSU-based techniques, Sarutobi said with a questioning look. Is this true? Yeah, the reason is because no matter how hard I try, I can't get through academy-based ninjutsu, Naruto said with a small amount of depression in his voice. So someone gave me this book on FUINJUTSU and I found out I'm pretty good at it. It doesn't have a chakra requirement to use, so that helps me out. Sarutobi nodded, but still looked a little worried. You should have told me what you were planning, Naruto. I could have helped. FUINJUTSU is a very dangerous thing to deal with. You must have complete concentration. If the slightest thing goes wrong, it could mean your life. Naruto nodded and started walking when he remembered something. Old man, do you know any way to help me with the Bunshin no Jutsu? It's my worst technique. Sarutobi just looked at Naruto with a sad smile. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't help you. He raised his hand to avoid interruption. The reason is that if I show favoritism, I'll have to teach others. You understand that, right? Sarutobi watched as Naruto nodded and walked away. As Naruto left, Sarutobi made a small motion with his hand, and that's when an ANBU appeared from the ground. I want you to keep a close eye on Naruto, Sarutobi said. I want you to keep an eye on him when he's not at the academy. Is that understood? The ANBU bowed and disappeared into the ground. The fact that Naruto was beginning to learn FUINJUTSU was worrying to Sarutobi because it meant that soon very specific people would try to kill or kidnap the young Uzumaki. Naruto, I hoped this would never happen. XXX. Naruto watched as Sasuke got up and walked towards the testing room, and Naruto knew it was his turn. Hinata looked at Naruto with concern in her eyes. She was happy that Naruto finally found something he was good at, but all students, no matter what technique they learn, must be able to use the Bunshin Jutsu. Good luck, Naruto-kun, Hinata thought as she watched Sasuke walk out with a Konoha headband. Naruto stood up, but just before he reached the door, he heard a small voice speak. Gee, good luck, Naruto. The voice said. Naruto turned around, but he didn't see where the voice came from. All right. Naruto performs a Bunshin, Iruka said as he hoped Naruto would perform well. Naruto took a deep breath and clasped his hands together. In a smokescreen, Naruto had a clone by his side, but he looked sickly and was lying on the ground trembling. Naruto felt his eye twitch as he looked at an Iruka who looked a little disappointed by Naruto's clone. I don't understand, Naruto, Iruka said, folding his hands and starting to think. You perform FUINJUTSU like you've been doing your whole life, but when it comes to using the Bunshin, it always looks like this. Naruto looked at the ground depressed by what he heard, but that wasn't until Naruto heard Mizuki speak. Come on, Iruka. Give him a rest this time. Mizuki said this with a kind smile. Besides, look at what he's done. He's using FUINJUTSU, something that humans can barely use. Naruto at that became a little hopeful, but that changed when Iruka spoke once again. That doesn't matter, Iruka said, but from his tone, what he was about to say made it seem like he was hurting him. Every student needs to make a Bunshin, and he could only make one, and it's pathetic. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't pass you. Iruka looked at Naruto and saw the pain in those deep blue eyes. Naruto walked away, and Iruka felt his heart tear for doing that to Naruto. Excellent. Now I can begin my plan, Mizuki thought with a smile that would freeze a person to the core. XXX. Naruto was sitting on a swing watching parents praise their children for making it into the ninja ranks. Naruto saw a few disgusted and angry looks pass his way, but he ignored them. It doesn't matter, Naruto thought. I can't pass the test no matter what I try. Suddenly, Naruto felt someone standing next to him. When he looked to his right, he saw Mizuki looking at him with a smile. XXX. Naruto was running from the Hokage Tower with the seal scroll on his back, heading to the place where Mizuki said to meet him. Naruto arrived at the meeting place and looked around but saw no sign of Mizuki. Well, I guess since I have this, I might as well try to learn some, Naruto said as he opened the scroll and saw the first jutsu. Kage Bunshin, Shadow Clone. Damn, that's my worst technique. Well, I better get started if I want to learn this. Naruto then spent the short time learning the Kage Bunshin technique. An hour later, a very angry Iruka appeared before a tired Naruto. There you go, Iruka said in a voice filled with anger. Looks like you found me, sensei, Naruto said as he rubbed the top of his head. Listen, I'm going to show you this amazing jutsu I learned from this scroll, and you're going to turn me into a ninja. This confused Iruka as he looked at Naruto. What are you talking about? Iruka asked this while looking at Naruto with a look of pure confusion. Mizuki-sensei told me that whoever ever learns a jutsu from this scroll can graduate even if they didn't pass the graduation exam. Naruto said this with a smile, but that quickly turned into a frown when he saw Iruka looking more shocked and confused. Iruka, what is dashed up? Naruto didn't finish his sentence. Iruka heard a hiss and looked to his right just in time to see kunai thrown at both him and Naruto. Be careful, Iruka shouted and pushed Naruto away. Iruka took the entire barrage of kunai and fell against the abandoned hut. Naruto watched as Iruka coughed up blood. Naruto looked in the direction the kunai were thrown and saw Mizuki with 2 Fuma shurikens on his back. Mizuki! Iruka grunted as he tried to move, but pain shot through his body. Naruto, give me the scroll and your test will be complete, Mizuki said, hoping Naruto would believe her. Don't do it, Naruto, Iruka said. Mizuki is lying. Mizuki started laughing at that. I'm lying, please, Iruka, Mizuki said. The entire village has been lying to you from the beginning, Naruto, Irika's eyes widened as he realized what Mizuki was about to do. Mizuki, no! Irika shouted. What? What are you talking about? Naruto asked. There was a law passed prohibiting anyone from speaking about the decree, Mizuki said with a smile. What decree? Naruto asked, not liking where this was going. It's prohibited, Mizuki. Irika shouted again. The decree was that no one was to speak about how the Kyuubi was sealed inside a baby. Mizuki said and watched as Naruto's eyes widened. The baby was you, Naruto. That's why everyone hates you and no one will miss you when you die. Naruto watched as Mizuki removed one of her Fuma Shuriken and threw the large circular saw at Naruto. Naruto watched as the blade got closer and closer. Naruto, get down! Naruto heard Irika yell this and ducked down. Suddenly, Naruto felt something wet drip onto his hand. Naruto looked up and saw Irika leaning over him with the shuriken on his back. Irika felt blood rush to his mouth, but despite the pain, Irika smiled at Naruto. Are you okay, Naruto? Irika asked, pain in every word. Why? Naruto asked. Because I know what it's like to grow up alone, Irika said. I know why you make jokes to get people to notice you. I understand everything, but I never tried to help you. That's why I'm sorry, Naruto. Naruto looked at Irika with some happiness until Mizuki spoke again. That's a laugh, Mizuki said with a laugh in his voice. Irika's only lying to you so you wouldn't use the scroll for revenge. Who can blame the guy for lying to the one thing that almost destroyed Konoha? Naruto then did the one thing Irika didn't want him to do. Naruto took off at full speed away from Irika and Mizuki. Naruto! Irika shouted. You know that look in his eyes, Irika, Mizuki said as he walked up behind Irika. He's going to take that scroll and destroy the village with it. That's how beasts are. Mizuki watched as Irika ripped the shuriken from his back. That's not what Naruto is. Irika yelled as he threw the giant weapon at Mizuki, who simply rolled out of the way. Thanks. I'll save you for later, Mizuki said. But right now I have another appointment to keep. With that, Mizuki ran off in the direction she was going. Irika collapsed to one knee as he looked at Mizuki. I won't leave you, Irika said as he got up and ran in the same direction. XXX. Mizuki, now transformed into Irika, watched Naruto run ahead of him and smiled. Naruto, everything Mizuki said was a lie, Mizuki said as she came up behind Naruto. She was only saying those things because ... She never finished as Naruto jumped up and slammed his head into Mizuki's stomach. Mizuki hit the ground with a loud thud. How did you know I wasn't Irika? Mizuki said as her transformation failed. He then saw Naruto smile. Because I'm Irika, Naruto said as he transformed back into Irika. Mizuki simply took off his other shuriken and threw it at Irika where it embedded itself in Irika's stomach. More blood started to come out of his mouth as Mizuki walked over and ripped the shuriken out of Irika's stomach. Why the hell would you be trying to save that animal? Mizuki asked. I mean, he was the one who killed your parents, so why protect the beast? Because my problem is with the Kyuubi, not Naruto, Irika said as he looked at Mizuki with blood all over his face and vest. And jokes aside, Naruto hasn't done anything wrong to try and hurt me or the village. Mizuki just started laughing. Fine, if you want to die by the demon then die. Mizuki said this as he swung his shuriken at Mizuki, but before the attack could land, Naruto delivered a roundhouse kick to Mizuki's head, sending him backwards. If you touch Irika-sensei one more time, I won't kill you, Naruto said. I will tear you to pieces. Mizuki was about to comment when Naruto put his fingers together in a cross. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique. The entire area was covered in smoke, and when it cleared, Irika and Mizuki couldn't believe what they saw. The entire forest was surrounded by hundreds of Naruto. Mizuki looked around and then at his single Fuma Shuriken, and a thought passed through his mind before the clones jumped. Fuck me, Mizuki thought as the forest erupted in screams. Naruto watched as the clones disappeared into smoke. Naruto turned around and saw Irika breathing heavily. Irika-sensei, I'm sorry if I didn't steal this stupid scroll. Naruto was interrupted when Irika chuckled. Judging by the amount of blood, it won't make it much longer, but at least I can correct it. Irika thought. Naruto, close your eyes. The request confused Naruto, but he did it anyway. Okay, open them. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw that Iruka wasn't wearing his headband. Naruto touched his forehead and felt the metal. Congratulations, Naruto, for passing. Naruto watched as Iruka's eyes slowly began to darken. Iruka-sensei, please don't die. Naruto shouted as he looked for some people to help them. You're one of the only people who treats me like I'm not an illness. Please don't leave. Iruka smiled at Naruto and then thought of something. He took out a scroll and opened it, and in a puff of smoke a vest that had the zipper torn and was black almost as if it had been burned by something. Naruto, this belonged to my father, and seeing as I won't be needing it anymore. Iruka said this as he gave the vest to Naruto. I want you to have it to always remember me by. Naruto didn't know what to say. He looked at the vets, then looked at Iruka and started to cry at what he saw and heard from Iruka. Naruto, you were always my favorite student. You almost always acted just like me. With that, Iruka died with a smile on his face. Naruto, on the other hand, was crying and grabbing Iruka's body almost as if you squeeze hard enough Iruka will come back. Naruto stayed like that until the Hokage and 3 others showed up and took Mizuki away. Sarutobi approached Naruto cautiously. Naruto, are you okay? Sarutobi asked, already knowing Naruto wasn't okay. But he still needed to ask. He died because of me, Naruto said as he looked at Sarutobi with tears in his eyes. If I didn't ... But Sarutobi quickly grabbed Naruto and hugged him. It's not your fault, Naruto, Sarutobi said in a very kind tone. Mizuki took advantage of you when he knew you were at your most vulnerable. It's his fault, not yours. Naruto yelled at the elderly Hokage as Sarutobi pulled him away from Iruka's body as 2 jonin came in and began carrying his body back to the village. XXX. Sarutobi watched as Naruto put the vest Iruka gave him over his shirt. Before Sarutobi could speak, Naruto spoke up first. So, what happens now? Naruto asked, holding Iruka's headband in his hands. Well, first we need to give Iruka a proper burial, Sarutobi said. Then we need to shift the teams around a few times to accommodate you. At that, Naruto looked at him in surprise. Why? Naruto asked. Not that I'm complaining or anything, but I thought after tonight. Naruto just trailed off after that. Naruto, Iruka gave you his headband because he believed you were ready to become a ninja, Sarutobi said with a kind smile. It would be foolish not to take his ultimate choice into account. Naruto nodded, but without his normal emotion. So when is his burial? Naruto asked if he had looked at the ground. Today, Sarutobi said as he watched Naruto nod one last time and start walking towards the door. He really cared about you, Naruto. Whenever he saw you struggling with a jutsu, he would always come to me for advice. He believed that once you became a ninja, you would be the best there was. Naruto paused in the doorway, but only for a second before closing the door behind him. I promise Iruka that I will always protect the one who is precious to me, Naruto thought. XXX. The funeral went well, with Iruka's class all coming to mourn their death. But if anything, Naruto's life got worse. The adults pleaded with the Hokage to strip Naruto of his ninja rank and ban him from the Ninja Academy for stealing both the sealing scroll and his involvement in Iruka's death. But Sarutobi ignored their requests. Naruto was the first at the funeral and the first to lay a flower on Iruka's grave, which didn't sit well with most of the adults. When the funeral was complete, only a few people remained behind. Naruto, Hinata, Shino, and Sarutobi all kept looking at Naruto with what looked like concern in their eyes. Shino walked over to Naruto, who was sitting in front of Iruka's grave, and in his own way patted him on the shoulder reassuringly. At first, he was confused as to what to do. Sarutobi and Hinata also walked over to Naruto. Sarutobi gave Naruto a small hug. Then it was just Hinata and Naruto. Hinata was still looking around nervously, trying to decide what to do or say. That was until Naruto stood up and started walking away. I'm so sorry about Iruka, Hinata said. You two were close. Naruto turned around and for the first time today he smiled. Although it was a sad smile, it was still a smile. Yeah, we were close, Naruto said, looking at her grave again. Hello, Hinata. At this, Hinata looked at Naruto with full attention. Usually, Irika and I go out for ramen. So I was wondering if you'd like to join me. Hinata was dazed at first and almost fainted, but she mustered up some willpower and stood her ground. Sure, Naruto, Hinata said with a blush. Hinata knew this wasn't going to be a date, but she knew Naruto wasn't himself right now and that he needed someone and that someone just happened to be her. Naruto smiled and started walking towards his favorite ramen stand, thinking about Irika and all the time they spent together at that ramen stand. The team assignments were postponed for 4 days to find a new instructor and for some people to get past Irika. Naruto spent his 4 days in his apartment throwing his kunai at the wall. The only people he would like to see were either Sarutobi or Hinata. Sarutobi came by occasionally to check on Naruto and Hinata came by delivering food for her crush. In those 4, both Hinata and Naruto grew close, not enough to be labeled boyfriend and girlfriend, but enough to almost be in that category. Hinata was actually the one who got Naruto out of his house. Naruto came in with his normal smile signaling to everyone telling them that Naruto was back. But Naruto carried something with him. A more serious attitude followed the blonde. He still teased everyone whenever he got the chance. But whenever someone messed with someone, his goofy attitude disappeared and was replaced with seriousness. Naruto's appearance changed as well. His hair seemed to have gotten much wilder and longer in the past 4 days. What everyone else started to notice was that Naruto started training harder and faster than before, as if Irika's death had driven Naruto to do so. As a result, Naruto's arms, hands, and neck were wrapped in bandages, causing people to try to get a glimpse of what was underneath the bandages. Some people liked Naruto's new twist. He told them that when the end came, he wasn't going to let anyone in his squad get hurt. Someone walked into the classroom with a clipboard that everyone assumed had the names of who they were assigned to be in a squad. "My name is Genma and I'm here to tell you who your squad is," Genma said as he looked around the room. "So let's get this started." Everyone heard Genma tell the students who was on what team. Team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. Your Jonin sensei will be Kakashi Hitaki. There were several reactions as Sakura started chanting that she was on the same team as Sasuke. Sasuke just shrugged, showing indifference. But the strangest reaction of all was Naruto's, who showed a no reaction except for a small smile which some people missed. Team 8 will consist of Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame, and Kiba Inuzuka. Your Jonin sensei will be Kurenai Yuhi. Genma continued until all the squads were named. Okay, your Jonin sensei should be here to pick you up in an hour or so. Until then, try to get to know your squad mates. Genma walked out the door, and the students and their squad also left. Only one team remained behind. Team 7. Sasuke. Would you like to go get something to eat while we wait for our teacher? Sakura said, hoping to get Sasuke alone. Sasuke didn't reply because he was busy watching Naruto start drawing stamps on the labels. Naruto, Sasuke said, getting Naruto's attention. What are you up to? Naruto just smiled. That's what he did. Oh, I'm making a special little seal for a certain someone, Naruto said amusedly. Then how about we go get something to eat? I'm starving. Naruto got up to leave. Then you two come. Sasuke shrugged, got up, and followed Naruto with Sakura right behind him. Unbeknownst to Sasuke and Sakura, one of Naruto's Kage Bunshin snuck in and placed 2 of the tags on Sasuke and Sakura's package. XXX. 3 hours later. Where is he? Sakura yelled, walking over. He's 2 hours late. Naruto, instead of trying to vent his anger, was drawing a seal in a bucket of water and a seal right above the door. Sasuke looked at what Naruto was doing in confusion. What is he doing now? Sasuke thought as he watched Naruto fill the bucket with water. He then hid the bucket under his desk, propped his feet up on his desk, and waited. The door opened, and a man walked in with his headband covering his left eye and his silver hair standing up in defiance of gravity. He looked around the room and saw Sakura staring at the deceased man. My first impression is Kakashi never finished his sentence because he saw Naruto hold up a tiger seal and a puff of smoke. He was confused at first until water and a bucket fell on him. I mean, you're all wet, Naruto finished for him with a chuckle. Kakashi removed the bucket and looked at it, seeing a seal on the bottom. Kakashi had a feeling. He looked over the door and saw another seal that was the exact opposite of the one on the bucket. Transfer seals. Kakashi thought as he watched Naruto walk toward him with his hands in his pockets. So what the Hokage told me was true. He's been studying the seals. Naruto walked up to Kakashi and smiled at him. Kakashi chuckled. "Meet me on the roof in a minute," Kakashi said as he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto smiled even wider and started walking toward the steps that would take him to the roof with Sasuke and Sakura right behind him. XXX, the roof. Kakashi looked at the team in front of him critically. "Okay, let's see how we do the introductions," Kakashi said, looking at Sakura. "Your pinky goes first." The nickname made Sakura angry, but she didn't understand what Kakashi meant. "What do you mean?" Sakura asked. "Fine, I'll go first," Kakashi said with a sigh. "My name is Kakashi Hatake. What bothers me is that I don't feel like talking. I like a lot of things, and I haven't really thought about my future." All we knew was his name. The three of them thought, sweat dropping. "My name is Sakura Haruno and I like..." Sakura looked at Sasuke and blushed. "I don't like perverts and stupid Ino, and my dream." She looked at Sasuke and laughed. "Agree with the attitude," Kakashi said, pointing at Sasuke, who looked a little annoyed. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha," Sasuke said. "I have no likes and many dislikes. My dream. No, my ambition is to revive the Uchiha clan and kill a certain man." Kakashi was a little worried about Sasuke, but for the moment he had to postpone it. "All right, mustache is your next," Kakashi said, pointing to Naruto, who was designing a new seal. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said without looking up from his seal. "I like designing new seals and learning new jutsu. I hate people who don't give anyone the chance to learn them before they pursue them. My dream is for people to remember a certain clan, but my dream is also to become Hokage. All right, I have a fan, an Avenger, and a Jinchuriki who's interested in FUINJUTSU." Kakashi thought with interest. "All right, let's all meet at Training Ground 3 for the genin test," Kakashi said, raising his hand to stop any interruptions. "Be here at 8 o'clock sharp. Oh, and don't eat anything because you'll throw up." With that, Kakashi disappeared in a swirl of leaves, leaving his team behind to their thoughts. XXX, tomorrow Training Camp 7. Team 7 was waiting on the field for Kakashi to show up now that he was an hour late. Sakura was still bouncing around, but Sasuke and Naruto were being patient. Naruto secretly created some clones to place seals around the area, and Sasuke was leaning against a tree. Kakashi suddenly appeared, greeting the group. "Where have you been?" Sakura yelled. "Well, you see," Kakashi said with a smile. "I was walking along this road when an old woman required my help. Then I had to avoid a black cat that crossed my path, and then I got lost on the road of life." Sakura simply called him a liar. Sasuke did nothing but stand up, but Naruto had the most surprising reaction. "Lost along the way," Naruto said with a raised eyebrow, and Kakashi nodded. "That happens to me sometimes on that road, since it doesn't happen with great scenery." That surprised everyone, but Kakashi recovered and smiled at the blonde. "Yes, Naruto," Kakashi said. "Very well, let's begin this test." Kakashi then held up 2 bells. "Those who get the bells pass and get to eat while the other is tied to the vote." "But Kakashi, there are only 2 bells," Sakura said, getting a smile from her sensei. "Exactly one of you will fail and be sent back to the academy." That made everyone gasp. "So you better come at me with killing intent. Let's go." Kakashi shouted this and watched as the group disappeared. Kakashi was looking around. "Pretty good," Kakashi said. "I can't find Kakashi stopped when Naruto appeared in front of him. "You know you're supposed to hide well," to which Naruto smiled. "Yes, but if I hide, I can't test my seals." Naruto said this as he unzipped one of the pockets on his vest. "Know that this will either work or this will explode and kill me, but live and learn." Naruto pulled out a red tag that had a fire seal on it. "I shouldn't let my guard down without knowing what's going to happen," Kakashi thought as he got ready. Naruto raised the seal until it was level with his head. He then released the seal and held his palm towards the back of the tag. The seal floated in midair in Kakashi's confusion until he heard Naruto speak. FUINJUTSU, Shikyaku, sealing technique, incineration. Naruto stated quite clearly. The tag suddenly burst into flames, leaving behind a ball of fire. Kakashi looked at him and was about to speak before the fireball shot into a stream of fire. Kakashi moved out of the way of the fire streams, but when Naruto moved his arm, the fire followed Kakashi and kept running until the fire was extinguished. He managed to put fire into a seal. Kakashi thought in amazement. When the fire died down, Naruto looked at his hand thoughtfully. 3 seconds. Naruto said in confusion to Kakashi. That's how long that seal lasts, in 3 seconds. Naruto then searched for another tag, but Kakashi wasn't about to let him. Kakashi disappeared in a burst of speed, surprising Naruto. Kakashi appeared behind Naruto and punched him in the back of the head, knocking him out, but instead of falling to the ground, Naruto disappeared. Kage Bunshin, Kakashi said with a smile. Could be interesting. Kakashi looked around and saw that Naruto was nowhere to be seen. So the real one is hiding somewhere, sending his clones to attack me with FUINJUTSU, trying to detect a weakness. Looks like all that FUINJUTSU training really paid off for both his intelligence and patience. Kakashi kept searching, but decided to create some clones to go find the 3 children. XXX. Come on, have you two ever heard of a 2-man squad? Naruto asked Sasuke and Sakura, who looked skeptical. Maybe this is a special rule, Sakura said, but even she doubted it. Sasuke just looked thoughtful while Naruto looked from one to the other. All right, let's work together. I'll create an opening. You guys go in there and get those bells. I don't care if I lose. Okay? Naruto said as he got up and ran through the forest. What do you think, Sasuke? Sakura asked, looking at her crush. Sasuke didn't respond, but watched as Naruto faded away. XXX. Where in this world are they? Kakashi didn't ask anyone in particular, but he got an answer. Maybe you should look in the trees, was the reply. Kakashi looked up to see Naruto holding 2 red tags. FUINJUTSU, Shikyaku. 2 streams of fire came roaring towards Kakashi, who had to dodge the raging fire. As the 2 streams of fire died, Naruto emerged from the flames with fire in his eyes. Naruto punched Kakashi in the head, but Kakashi ducked just in time and kicked Naruto in the side. Naruto was sent into a tree where he burst into smoke. What's he doing too? Kakashi thought to himself. He keeps sending clones. It's almost as if. That's when it hit Kakashi like a ton of bricks. Oh crap! Kakashi yelled as he ran toward the forest exit. He's using seals. That means he could have dashed. Naruto appeared in front of him with his hands clasped in a snake seal. He set a trap. Naruto finished. FUINJUTSU, Horin, sealing technique, disintegration circle. Naruto said this, and suddenly, from the 2 trees that were on Kakashi's right and left side, an orange tendril with yellow spiraling patterns came out to wrap around Kakashi and pin his arms to his side. Kakashi looked and saw that both tendrils were coming from tags on the surface of the trees. Damn, how could I have fallen into an obvious trap? But maybe if I pull out one of the tags it would free me? Kakashi thought. Kakashi managed to free one of his hands and threw an explosive kunai at one of the trees. As the kunai exploded and destroyed the tree, the orange tendrils disappeared. Kakashi looked up and saw Naruto on the ground breathing heavily. It seems that seal requires a constant flow of chakra, and if that flow is disturbed in a single instance, it doesn't drain you. But that was when he saw Naruto smirk. I never planned on one of them keeping you still, Naruto said with amusement in his blue eyes. Kakashi's eyes widened as he looked over and saw Sasuke and Sakura reach for one of the bells. Very well, but I'm a jonin for a reason, Kakashi said, causing everyone to stop. And now I know not to go into the forest. With that, Kakashi's clone burst into smoke. Damn it, Akage Bunshin, Naruto cursed. Naruto then bent down and undid the bandages around his right arm, revealing seals that meant many different things, but from what Sakura could see, they meant static. At this rate, I'm going to have to reveal some of my secret FUINJUTSU. Naruto then stood up unsteadily and looked towards the exit of the forest. Let's get moving, Triple X. Kakashi looked at his watch and saw they had about 3 minutes left. They've already gotten the concept that they're going to work together, but let's see if they can get these bells. Kakashi said this as he saw the three emerge from the forest. But what surprised Kakashi was the fact that Naruto's arms were covered in seals. Now what? Naruto stopped a few feet in front of Kakashi. Be careful not to explain what you've planned with them. Naruto smirked, raising his left hand in a tiger seal as he pointed his right arm outstretched towards Kakashi. Did you know that static electricity is always in the air? Naruto said as he spoke. Sasuke was finishing his hand sign and Sakura was pulling out a kunai. Kakashi had a nervous feeling in his stomach. Okay, what about it? Kakashi said, which made Naruto smile. FUINJUTSU, Byakurai, sealing technique, pale illumination. Naruto said, and suddenly the seals on his right arm began to glow and crackle like lightning. Kakashi watched until a blue light appeared on Naruto's finger. Kakashi dodged a static beam that missed him by inches, but when he looked back he saw Sasuke with his hands clasped in a tiger seal. Keton Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Sasuke said with his fingers curled around his lips in a ring. Kakashi was forced to dodge a potentially lethal jutsu only to run into Sakura, who threw her kunai at him. When I told them to come at me with the intent to kill, I didn't appreciate them taking it so seriously. Kakashi thought as he grabbed Sakura by the arm and spun it around until she dropped the kunai. Kakashi grabbed it in and brought it to her throat. Now, what are you going to do? Kakashi watched as Naruto's arm began to glow from the static electricity building up. Naruto then did something Kakashi didn't plan for. Naruto turned around and fired the static beam at Sasuke. Sasuke watched as the beam got closer and closer, but before it could hit him, it spun around and hit his backpack. Sasuke watched as his backpack absorbed the beam and then disappeared. What was that dashed? Kakashi didn't finish when he heard a cracking sound. He looked down and saw Sakura's backpack glowing. Shit, was all Kakashi had time to say before the static beam shot out of Sakura's backpack and hit him in the stomach. Kakashi dropped both Sakura and the kunai. Kakashi was charged with electricity, but instead of shooting through him, the static beam simply slowed his movements as if it was tensing his muscles. Thanks like a taser. Kakashi looked up and saw Naruto on his knee breathing heavily while his arm looked sore. But Naruto smiled nonetheless as Sakura and Sasuke jumped to the bells, but just before they could ring them the bell rang. Kakashi let out a sigh as he felt his muscles relax. Looks like none of you have any bells, Kakashi said as he beckoned the group to follow him. Kakashi watched as each of the three sat down in various seats. Even though I wasn't using my full power, you guys really came close. Kakashi frowned at Naruto. Naruto was still holding onto his right arm, but moving it a little more. Naruto, what did you do when you shot Sasuke? Naruto didn't reply, but reached out, grabbed Sakura's package, and pulled out a burnt sticker. Yesterday, when we were assigned a team together, I wanted to make sure that if Sakura or Sasuke were captured, I could get them out. Naruto said as he put down the tag and watched as it slowly turned to ash and floated away. Sasuke took off his backpack and emptied it, but all he got was a pile of ash. So you made sure you could get your partner out of a tight spot, Kakashi said with a proud tone. Where did you get your thanks for that? That's when Naruto's smile turned into a sad frown. I thought about that when Iruka died, Naruto said sadly. It was then that Kakashi realized he'd touched a very sensitive nerve. Well, I guess I have to send you three back to the academy, Kakashi said as he turned around and gave them one final test. Let's see if you working together was a fluke. No, we didn't fail, Sasuke and Sakura said at the same time. Oh, and why not? Kakashi said in an angry voice. Because the test wasn't to get the bells, it was to see if we could work together, Sasuke said with a smile. And whoever heard of a two-man squad? Sakura said with a note of pride in her voice. Really? Then I guess I have no choice, Kakashi said as lightning flashed behind him. All of you, come in. This received applause from everyone. Kakashi walked over to Naruto as he wrapped his right arm. How's your arm? Naruto looked up and smiled. It's fine, Naruto said as he finished the bandage. It's just that if I use it too much, I start to feel the static start to tense my muscles. But I'm fine. Kakashi nodded and looked at the other two. What do you think of this team? Kakashi asked, curious to see what Naruto would say. I'd say we're ready for anything, Naruto said as he looked at Sasuke and Sakura. Now, what do you say you and I travel down that road of life and see the sights? Kakashi chuckled and patted Naruto on the back. Do you have the target in sight? Kakashi's voice came through the earpiece. See, Sasuke Daijo. Roger, Naruto said with a smile. Yes, Sakura said. Then move, Kakashi said. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke dashed out of the forest and ran towards the target, who got away only to be caught by Naruto's Kage Bunshin. The cat kept trying to scratch Naruto's clone, but it kept the beast of a cat away from anything vital. Target captured, the group said as Naruto grabbed the cat and his clone disappeared. Check the necklace. Does it have Tora's name on it? Kakashi said. Yeah, Naruto said as he took a look, but he stepped closer and got scratched in the face. Naruto threw the cat and was tempted to throw the feline, but that's when Naruto remembered that this was a mission. XXX. Tora! The fire daimyo's wife shouted. Don't run away again. She said this as she deposited money on Sarutobi's desk and left clutching the cat. I feel so bad for the cat, Naruto thought as he cringed at the sight of the cat's eyes darting around to escape. Good work, everyone, Sarutobi said with a smile. Now, what other job do you want? We have painting, housekeeping, or… Sarutobi never finished when Naruto interrupted. None of the above, Naruto said. I'm grateful it's time we had a real mission. Sarutobi looked at Naruto with a smile. Oh, and why should you? Sarutobi asked. Well, it's just that, Naruto said with a smile. We're the best. Kakashi patted Naruto on the head. Naruto looked at Kakashi, but he was staring at his orange book. Sarutobi looked at Kakashi and the rest of his team and sighed. Kakashi, what's your opinion? Sarutobi asked. Kakashi looked up and then looked at his team. Sasuke was indifferent, just looking around the room. Sakura was looking at Sasuke and Naruto with a nervous smile, and then at Naruto, who was busy drawing a new idea for a seal. I appreciate you being able to handle a C-rank mission, Kakashi said, smiling as his team looked at him with gratitude in their eyes. Sarutobi smiled. Very well. I just happened to have a mission. A simple little escort mission to the Nami no Kuni, Land of Waves. Sarutobi said this, and the door opened to reveal an old man with a straw hat and a bottle of sake. This is Tsunade, and this is the team that will be escorting you. Tsunade looked at the group and frowned. That's all, Tsunade said in a demeaning tone. They're just a bunch of kids, and the blonde one looks the weakest. Naruto ended up getting a check mark on his own. Hey, listen, Grandpa, Naruto yelled, getting Tsunade's attention. I don't care if you're the person we're supposed to escort. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I will one day lead this village. Naruto looked at Tsunade and saw a flash of consideration pass through his eyes. Uzumaki, Tsunade thought in confusion. Why does that name sound so familiar? Tsunade shook it off for now. I guess they'll do. Let's go. With that, Tsunade turned and started walking away. But from behind, the group never saw that he was still thinking about Naruto's last name, XXX. Naruto walked with Kakashi while Sasuke and Sakura stayed with Tsunade. Kakashi was reading from his book when a reflection caught his eye. He looked into it and saw a pool of water. Strange that it hasn't watered here for days, Kakashi thought as he slowly placed his book back into his backpack. Suddenly, two shapes emerged from the water. Both wore respirator masks and had tattered cloaks with two chained gauntlets. The two managed to wrap Kakashi in the spike chain. One less, Meizu said with happy glee in her eyes. Then the chains tightened and cut Kakashi in two. 3 to go, Gozu finished. The two spun around and were met with a roundhouse kick from Naruto and Sasuke. The two ducked under the kicks and seemed to glide across the ground like ghosts. His fast, Sasuke thought as he looked at Naruto, who reached for the bandages on his left arm. Whatever you have planned, Naruto, you better do it quickly. Naruto removed the bandages, revealing a storage seal on his wrist that reached down to his elbow. Naruto channeled chakra into the seal, and in a puff of smoke Naruto held a Fuma shuriken. But instead of having straight points, the points were curved like fangs and were pure black. "Sasuke, tell me, can you give me a chance?" Naruto said as he began to spin the deadly-looking shuriken. "Please, Dobe, watch who you're talking to too," Sasuke said with a smile. Sasuke charged at the brothers who attacked him directly, but before they were even inches away from Sasuke, they jumped at Sakura, who was holding a kunai in a protective stance in front of Tsunade. "Curse!" Naruto cursed as he spun around and threw the shuriken above the brothers, confusing the group. Sasuke looked at Naruto and saw he had his fingers in a bird sign and knew what he was doing. Sasuke charged at the demon brothers who were getting closer and closer to Sakura, but just before they raised their gauntlets, they heard something that made them look up. FUINJUTSU, Hisamirishi Renda, Sealing Technique, Hailstorm Barrage. What they saw nearly made them shit themselves. The shuriken Naruto threw was now glowing with seals traced along the edges of the blades. But that wasn't what scared them. It was what came out of the shuriken seals. Various weapons from spears to kunai and swords to daggers rained down on the two brothers who were forced to dodge or become living pins. Mizo looked at Naruto, who was smiling at him. "We have to take care of him," Mizo said to his brother, who nodded. The two started running toward Naruto, but that's when the brothers got a second scare. "Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu." They heard this and narrowly dodged a fireball that incinerated the trees right next to them. They looked at Sasuke and then at each other and nodded. Suddenly, the chain connecting the two broke. Gozu and Meizu went after different targets. Gozu charged at Naruto while Meizu began her approach towards Sasuke. Naruto got up and began to place both of his fingers together in the sign of the cross when two dogs appeared out of nowhere and tackled Gozu to the ground and pinned him down. Meizu looked at his brother and was rewarded with a punch to the face that knocked him unconscious. "Well done, everyone," Kakashi said as his dogs kept Gozu pinned to the ground. Kakashi approached the downed shinobi and knocked him out as well. As the dogs disappeared into the smoke, Kakashi grabbed them and tied them to a tree. "You know these aren't bandits, Tsunade?" Kakashi looked at Tsunade, who seemed to be trying to avoid Kakashi's eyes. "Care to explain?" Tsunade looked up and sighed. Tsunade began to tell the story of Gato and how he invaded and took over his village. He told them that his village was weak economically because of Gato, so the only rank mission he could afford was a C rank. Kakashi nodded. "Well, with the introduction of the Demon Brothers, I'd say this mission went from a C rank to an A rank. Usually, when a client lies, we have to take them back to the village, and since this is a mission that—" But he was interrupted by Naruto. "We're not going to give up, are we?" Naruto said as he stood right next to Tsunade after resealing all the weapons into the shuriken and putting the shuriken back into his arm seal. "Look, I never back down and I never give up, and that includes missions." Kakashi looked at the rest of his team. "Do the rest of you feel that way?" Kakashi asked. "We agreed to take on this mission," Sasuke said as he began walking in the direction of Nami no Kuni. "It might be difficult, but we're ready," Sakura said as she turned and walked towards Sasuke. "All right, we're continuing the mission," Kakashi said as he turned around and saw his team already disappearing over a hill. Sasuke was walking when he heard a sound coming from the bushes and then, faster than anyone could react, he threw a kunai into the bushes. Suddenly, a pure white rabbit jumped out of the bushes scared for its life. Sakura managed to grab the rabbit and began to calm it down. "You could have hurt the rabbit, Sasuke," Sakura said. Sasuke simply shrugged and continued walking. Kakashi managed to catch up with him just in time to see the rabbit before Sakura sat down to release it. "A snow bunny here in this weather," Kakashi thought and then heard a whirring noise and turned to see a giant sword spinning towards them. "Get down!" The group ducked just as the blade passed right above them and embedded itself into the tree. The group looked up and saw a man standing on the hilt of the sword. He had a bandana around the lower half of his face. He was wearing camouflage pants and no shirt. "Zabuza Momochi," Kakashi said with a furious glare as he slowly stood up. "Kirigakure no Kijin, Demon of the Hidden Mist." "Kakashi Hataki," Zabuza said with a hint of amusement. "Kopi Ninja no Kakashi, Copy Ninja Kakashi. This is excellent. I can kill the bridge builder and one of Konoha's elite. Stay out of this fight. He's out of your league, Kakashi said as he lifted his headband and revealed a Sharingan eye. Sasuke stared at the eye in shock. He's not an Uchiha, is he? Sasuke thought as he watched Kakashi get into a fighting stance. Kakashi looked at his team and smiled. Don't worry, I won't let him hurt any of you. Kakashi said this as he turned around and saw Zabuza holding his giant sword in his hands. Are you done with the cheesy goodbye? Zabuza asked mockingly. Kakashi's response was to attack Zabuza with an already drawn kunai. Kakashi swung his kunai at Zabuza, who jumped over Kakashi and swung his sword at his head. But Kakashi jerked his head back just in time to miss a nasty haircut. Kakashi jumped back and delivered a kick to Zabuza's side that sent him back to where he was. But only this time he was lying on his back. Kakashi stopped and was about to attack when Zabuza clapped his hands together. Kirigakure no Jutsu, hidden mist technique, Zabuza said as a thick fog rolled in and began to hide him. Kakashi's eyes narrowed as he found it difficult to see even with his Sharingan. The mist is mixed with chakra, Kakashi thought. This is going to get bad. That's when he heard Zabuza's voice. There are so many places to kill you, Zabuza said. There are so many, I don't know what to hit. That's when Kakashi knew where he was going to strike. The bridge builder, Kakashi thought as he ran towards Naruto and the rest of the team's location. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were in a semicircle around Tsunade when Zabuza appeared right in the middle of them with his sword already held in an attacking position. Zabuza saw Kakashi appear and smiled at him. I'm sorry, but you dash dot. Zabuza stopped as a group of Kage Bunshins landed on him in Naruto form. Lose, Naruto said, finishing Zabuza's sentence. Naruto had his right arm raised and in his palm he held a red tag. Zabuza. Zabuza looked at Tsunade, Sakura and Sasuke and watched as they disappeared into the smoke. FUINJUTSU, Shikyaku. Zabuza's eyes widened as he saw a jet of fire launch towards him, incinerating the clones. But when the fire died, there was nothing but a wet spot on the ground. Naruto gritted his teeth, seeing that it wasn't the real Zabuza. Naruto looked towards the forest and saw Sasuke and Sakura walking out of the forest with Tsunade close behind. Good work, Naruto, Kakashi said proudly of his student. Now Sasuke, Sakura and Dash. He never finished his sentence as Naruto was grabbed by a whip-like force of water and swung against several trees until he landed almost a meter away from the tip of Zabuza's blade. Naruto! Kakashi tried to approach Naruto but was stopped when several water clones burst out of the forest and water around them. I'm sorry, but I have some business with the dwarf, Zabuza said. But I'm sure my clones can keep you company. They may only have a tenth of my strength, but I'm sure if I have a small army attacking you, it won't make much difference. Damn! Kakashi thought as he pulled out his kunai and looked at Naruto, who gave him a thumbs up. He must have been making clones to prepare for us, but if that's the case, then he should be almost out of chakra. It was then that he noticed a small bag on the ground. I have to get soldier pills for Naruto and fast. Zabuza chuckled as he watched his clones begin their attack. Now then, where were we, shorty? Zabuza said, but Naruto's response was a mumble. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Are you so scared you can't even speak properly? That's when Naruto shouted his answer. My name is not Runt. Naruto shouted. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Zabuza's eyes widened at hearing Naruto's last name. No, he can't be an Uzumaki, Zabuza thought. The Uzumaki were exterminated a long time ago. Zabuza was so busy with his thoughts that he didn't notice when Naruto removed the bandages around both of his arms and neck, revealing seals all over him. Zabuza noticed the seals and gritted his teeth. Damn it, he's an Uzumaki. Zabuza jumped away from Naruto and raised his sword, pointing at Naruto. Sorry, kid. If I let you live, you might become a huge problem for my mission. It was then that Zabuza charged, but he noticed Naruto's right arm started to glow and crackle like electricity. FUINJUTSU, Byakurai. Naruto stated quite clearly and fired a static beam that nailed Zabuza's left arm and numbed it. So the seal on his right arm absorbs static electricity and fires it in a beam, paralyzing anything it hits. Zabuza thought, analyzing Naruto's seals. His left arm has a storage seal that contains a giant shuriken that has many other different weapons sealed in it. So my first goal should be to immobilize that right arm. Zabuza looked at his left arm and felt his feeling return. Zabuza charged and swung his sword, but Naruto put some chakra into his storage seal and pulled out his giant shuriken. Zabuza's sword hit the shuriken and forced Naruto to fall back, but Naruto quickly regained his balance and threw the massive blade at Zabuza, who dodged to the left and swung his sword with enough force to snap the spinning blade in two. Zabuza expected to see the shuriken sliced in two, but it disappeared, revealing a Kage Bunshin that vanished in smoke. He turned a Kage Bunshin into a real shuriken. Zabuza thought in amazement. This kid is a gold mine. If I was in Kirigakure, I would have taken him with me. Zabuza snapped out of his trance when he saw Naruto put his hands together, palms facing Zabuza. It was then that Zabuza noticed the seals on Naruto's palms, so he can only use that one seal whenever he puts his palms together. It was then that Zabuza noticed the wind around them was being pulled towards Naruto. Oh, this could be bad. I only have enough chakra for this one, Naruto thought as he felt his body begin to give way. I can't fail. FUINJUTSU, Tenrin, Sealing Technique, Orchid Sky. Naruto shouted this as a ball of wind appeared in his hands. Zabuza's eyes widened as the ball expanded and turned into a tornado-shaped drill. Zabuza watched as the drill-shaped tornado began to tear away chunks of the ground. Fuck me, Zabuza thought as he ran. He jumped into the water and kept running. But when he turned around, he saw Naruto struggling by putting more chakra into his jutsu. The kid's going to kill himself. That was when the tornado split into two and flew towards Zabuza. Zabuza watched as the two tornadoes got closer and closer, but just as they were about to cut him into pieces, they disintegrated. Zabuza, with wide eyes, looked towards Naruto and found him on one knee, sucking in a lung full of air as blood gently dripped from his mouth. I need to end this silly game right now, Zabuza said. He clasped his hands together and the mist rushed back in. Naruto looked around for Zabuza, but he didn't notice Zabuza slowly emerging from the mist like a demon. Sorry kid, nothing personal. Naruto turned his head just in time to see Zabuza swing his massive sword at him. Kakashi finally finished the last clone and saw the fog Zabuza was making fade a bit and saw something that made him panic. Zabuza was brandishing his sword at the only blind spot every creature had. Their neck. Naruto! Kakashi and the rest of his team yelled. Adhere! Zabuza watched in amazement as a purple-looking hexagonal barrier appeared right behind Naruto, protecting him from Zabuza's attack. Naruto took this opportunity and jumped away from Zabuza, but as soon as his feet touched the ground, he collapsed to one knee. Naruto looked at Zabuza, and that was when Zabuza saw him. The seal around Naruto's throat had expanded and was now reaching his eyes, but the seal began to fall from Naruto's face and the barrier shattered like glass. That's a nifty seal you've got there, kid, Zabuza said. But it seems you can only do it once. Naruto cursed and tried to get up, but fell back down. You're right, Naruto said. That specific seal is a one-time deal. I can use it only once before the seal peels away like paper on its own. Then, I'm forced to draw another. Zabuza chuckled and began walking towards Naruto, each step making Naruto feel something he had never felt before. Fear for his death. Every step Zabuza took felt like death was slowly approaching Naruto. Naruto, for the first time in his life, saw his life flash before his eyes, and what he saw depressed the young blonde. Maybe this is for the best, Naruto thought. I only had and have a few people who care about me, and because of me, one of them died. Maybe I should accept it. Then, images of Hinata visiting him day after day came flooding back to him. She always came to see if Naruto needed anything, and every time he told her he was okay, she stayed behind just to make sure. He remembered how Team 7 cared for him and was confused as to why he was remembering these things. It was as if his brain was trying to contradict itself. Suddenly, Naruto wasn't sure he wanted to die anymore. Before Zabuza could even raise his sword, he was forced back by two fireballs and a barrage of kunai with explosive tags on them. Naruto looked up and saw his entire team standing in front of him in a protective stance, with Tsunade standing beside him holding what appeared to be a mace. What are ... Naruto managed to get this out while putting strength behind his leg in an attempt to stand before falling and being caught by Tsunade. Because, Naruto, we're a team and we help each other, Kakashi said as Sakura and Sasuke nodded. Now rest, I think you really need it. With that, Naruto closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. You're going to pay for what you did to him, Kakashi told Zabuza in a threatening tone. Zabuza laughed at Kakashi. I didn't do anything. It's just that your clan has always been a reckless bunch. Zabuza mocked them. When his eyes met Team 7's confused looks, he decided he might as well tease them a little while he gave the signal to the invisible figure in the trees. You don't know anything about him, do you? Well, let me tell you a little secret. However, Zabuza never got the chance to fill Team 7 in on the secret, because 3 Senbons came sailing out of nowhere and poked him straight in the back of the head. Team 7 stared at the mysterious Senbons in a daze as Zabuza collapsed to the ground in an unceremonious heap. Before anyone could regain control, a ninja wearing a hunter-nin mask appeared right next to Zabuza's corpse. Thank you, he said in a strange feminine voice. If it weren't for you, I never would have had a chance. He picked up Zabuza's limp body and held out a tiger sign. Before I go, I suggest you take a look at your friend because he doesn't look very well. Goodbye, he told them as he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Team 7 was snapped out of their commotion when Tsunade called out to them. He's sweating and shaking. I don't think that's a very good sign, Tsunade told Team 7 in a worried tone as he looked at Naruto, who was a little pale. Damn, I used to have a lot of chakra in that fight, Kakashi thought as he walked towards Naruto. He's suffering from severe chakra depletion, Kakashi explained to the others as he forced Naruto open and inserted some soldier pills, but inwardly he was thinking about what went wrong. I thought the Kyuubi would prevent something like this, but I guess Naruto was overusing the seals. I think the seals are consuming chakra too quickly for him, or the Kyuubi's chakra regulating seal to balance it out. It's going to be okay, right, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura said in a scared voice as she looked at the image of Naruto lying helpless on the ground. Kakashi looked up and gave him a smile. Yeah, he should be fine. Naruto's always full of energy. Kakashi said this, but deep down he was thinking something else. But if he keeps this up, I'm afraid he might end up killing himself with these seals. Kakashi muttered to himself in a soft voice that only he could hear. Sasuke looked at Naruto and then at Kakashi with a confused expression. What did Zabuza mean by saying that people in Naruto's clan were always reckless? Sasuke asked. I don't know, to tell you the truth. I've never heard of an Uzumaki clan. Kakashi lied. Actually, it wasn't a total lie. Kakashi had heard about a certain powerful clan that sort of died out years ago because there are few to no survivors, but he didn't know the exact references about them or basically anything about them. Tsunade went deeper into the forest and returned with some vines and 2 long pieces of wood. We could make him a stretcher, Tsunade suggested, receiving a nod from Kakashi. When the stretcher was finished, Kakashi laid Naruto on it and began walking along the path toward the water while Tsunade, Sasuke, and Sakura carried the stretcher. Hang on, Naruto, we'll get you somewhere you can rest, Kakashi thought as he looked at Naruto's limp body. XXX. Zabuza woke up in bed with Haku on top of him tending to his wounds. Haku noticed the change in his breathing and saw that Zabuza was awake. Zabuza-sama, Haku said with great respect in his voice. How are you feeling? Zabuza just grunted and looked away. Moments after Zabuza woke up, the door opened and Gato entered with 2 bodyguards carrying swords. Well, I couldn't believe it without seeing it for myself. It seems what I heard is true. Gato snickered as he walked over to Zabuza. The great Zabuza beaten up by mere children. Gato sneered and walked over to Zabuza. However, his hand was grabbed by a firm grasp. Gato looked to see the owner of the hand and found himself being glared at by Haku. You won't lay your filthy hands on him? Haku told him firmly as he gave Gato's arm a firm squeeze, breaking a couple of bones in the process. Ah! Gato yelled in pain and pulled his injured arm away from Haku. Just make sure it doesn't happen again. Understand, Zabuza? With that, Gato turned on his heel and the 3 of them left, closing the door behind them. Haku stood up and started walking towards the window with a basket in his arms. Where are you going? Zabuza asked as he turned his head towards Haku with a questioning look. We don't have any herbs. I need to go get some more. Haku paused momentarily as he told Zabuza. However, before Haku had a chance to take a couple of steps, Zabuza grabbed Haku's clothes. Sit down. I need to tell you about that blonde boy I fought, Zabuza said and tried to sit down as Haku began to protest. My injuries can wait. This is much more important. With that, he began to tell Haku about Naruto and his clan. XXX. Naruto opened his eyes and felt himself being gently rocked back and forth. He slowly sat up and felt the blankets he was wrapped in slide off him. What happened? Naruto groaned, only to receive a hard punch from Sakura. Ow! What was that for? He yelled. That was enough to worry us, silly. Sakura told him as Kakashi looked behind him to see what all the commotion was about. When he saw Naruto wake up, Kakashi made his way to Naruto as carefully as he could on the small boat. Naruto, how are you feeling? Kakashi asked in a serious voice. Fine, I just have a headache. As soon as those words left Naruto's mouth, Naruto leaned over the jar and vomited up the little food he had in his stomach. Okay, scratch that, I don't feel so good. Nausea is expected after recovering from such intense chakra depletion. Kakashi told Naruto in a worried voice as he held up 3 fingers. How many fingers am I holding up? Kakashi asked. Naruto looked confused as he tried to look at the hand. 3. Naruto said as he lay down to try to ease the pain in his stomach. It's okay, you should be fine. Just take it easy for today. Okay? Nothing too stressful. Kakashi told Naruto as he returned to his book with a perverted grin. Yeah, this would be a lot of fun. Naruto muttered as they approached dry land, not knowing what was in store for them. XXX. When the boat hit the dock, Tsunade stayed and helped Naruto off the boat. Naruto's leg wobbled as his feet hit the ground, and Naruto grabbed onto the boat to steady himself. Damn! Naruto cursed as he finally felt what it meant to be as weak as a defenseless kitten. Tsunade helped Naruto recover and stayed close to him in case he fell again. Are you going to be okay, kid? Tsunade's worried voice asked Naruto. Yeah, I'll be fine, old man, Naruto said, and when he saw Tsunade's eyebrow twitch at the phrase old man, Naruto couldn't help but laugh. Let's go to my house before I decide to leave you alone to walk without any support. Tsunade told Naruto with a hint of anger in his voice, obviously annoyed by the comment about his age. XXX. When the ship arrived at the dock, Tsunade stayed and helped Naruto off the ship. When Naruto's feet hit the ground, he almost fell. Damn! Naruto cursed as he finally felt what it meant to be as weak as a defenseless kitten. Tsunade helped Naruto regain his balance, but Tsunade stayed close to him in case he fell again. Are you going to be okay, kid? Tsunade asked in a strained voice. Yeah, I'll be quite old, Naruto said and chuckled as he saw Tsunade's eyebrow twitch. Let's go to my house before I force you to walk without any support, Tsunade said with a hint of anger in his voice. XXX. Tsunami Inari, Tsunade shouted as he walked into his house. A young girl peeked around the corner and ran up to Tsunade, giving him a big hug. Father, I was worried. I thought Gato would do whatever it took to get rid of you, Tsunami said with a hint of fear in her eyes. I'm fine thanks to this group. He gestured to the team behind him. This is Tsunami and this. He looked around for Inari as he came down the stairs. It's Inari. Nice to meet you. I'm Kakashi Hatake, Kakashi said, pointing to his students as he named them. Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunami's eyes widened at the sound of Naruto's last name, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. However, this wasn't lost on Naruto, and he began to get very annoyed at the fact that people were reacting like that to his name. Okay, what's up with my last name? Naruto asked, clearly annoyed that everyone was looking at him like he'd grown another limb or something. I'm sorry, I thought I'd heard that name before. Tsunami shook her head slightly and apologized with a meek smile. I'll go make dinner. Father, why don't you come with me? I have something to show you. Tsunade looked confused, but nonetheless followed Tsunami's lead. As soon as the two were out of earshot of the other 4, Tsunami spun around and looked at her father. Do you realize who that is? Tsunade asked with an apprehensive smile. Yeah, he's the boy who kept me safe. Tsunade was interrupted by Tsunade, hitting him over the head with a wooden spoon. No. Tsunade sighed and rolled her eyes. You used to tell me stories about a certain hidden village that existed here, and you told me a lot of stories, especially related to a certain powerful clan that basically ruled the village. Tsunade told her father, hoping that her father would remember, but he still looked confused. Tsunade let out a large sigh and grabbed her father's hand. She led her father to a locked shelf and unlocked the lock. She pulled out a rather thick book and shoved it into her father's stomach with all her might. Perhaps this will jog your memory. Tsunade looked at the book and saw the spiral, and then memories of a certain clan came flooding back. I don't believe it. I can't believe it. Tsunade muttered to himself as he looked at Naruto through a crack in the wall. Then, Tsunade remembered all the strange FUINJUTSU Naruto pulled off, and his face froze as he finally came to terms with the realization. He's a member of the Uzumaki clan. Tsunade rolled her eyes again as her father finally put it all together. I can't believe you didn't figure it out when he said his name, Tsunade said as she looked at Naruto. What should we do? Tsunade thought for a moment. Well, we could show him that old building that no one can enter, Tsunade suggested, to which Tsunade nodded. Holding the thick book in one hand, Tsunade returned to the room where everyone else was sitting. He approached Naruto, who was ferociously attacking his food, and caught the moment Naruto leaned back from his food to catch his breath, dropping the heavy book onto Naruto's lap. What the hell was that for? Naruto yelled after recovering from the initial shock of having a book dropped on him. We need to go for a walk, Tsunade said with sudden seriousness, catching everyone else's attention. And why, can I ask? Kakashi asked in a suspicious voice. Because if my suspect is correct, then we're looking for the sole survivor of one of the strongest clans here, Tsunade said as he grabbed Naruto by the wrist and gently led him towards the door. Naruto's team, Tsunade, and Inari also followed them. XXX. Outside, everyone watched as the group walked toward the oldest building in the middle of the city. For years, no one had been able to enter. Many had tried and all had failed. The building looked new compared to the other buildings. The only bad thing was that some boards were missing in certain places, and the color was starting to fade. What's going on, Tsunade? An old man asked from his chair. I don't know, but something tells me we have the person we've been looking for these past few years, Tsunade said. Everyone surrounded Naruto, looking at him curiously. Naruto found himself staring at the old building and almost felt relaxed despite the fact that half the village was staring at him. Go ahead, try opening the door. Naruto somehow got the feeling that he shouldn't open the door, but at the same time, he felt himself being dragged very slowly towards the door until he was standing in front of it. Naruto turned around and saw everyone holding their breath as they stared at him. Naruto gulped and reached for the door handle. As soon as Naruto's hand touched the doorknob, black lines ran down his body and Naruto gritted his teeth in pain. Kakashi tried to reach Naruto as Naruto was forced to his knees due to the pain, but found he could barely move with all the villagers around him. Then, as quickly as it started, it was over. The lines receded and there was a loud click that made everyone's heart stop for a moment. A sudden silence fell over the crowd and Naruto could have sworn he could have heard the needle drop to the ground. Naruto stood up and lightly pushed on the door. The door opened easily and that was enough for the villagers. The Uzumaki clan lives again, a random villager said, and that's when cheers broke out. But Naruto ignored it as he got a glimpse of what was inside the building. The entire area was covered in dust and dirt, but that wasn't what caught Naruto's attention. It was the spirals that were everywhere. Naruto entered the house, and the villagers waited outside for Naruto to come out. Naruto looked around the house and noticed that it looked like it had been looted years ago. Things were scattered everywhere, and occasionally Naruto would find a torn piece of cloth or a broken mirror with rusty red stains. Naruto collapsed to the ground and began beating the ground with his fists. Every time I get this close to knowing who I am, it's taken away from me, Naruto thought as tears streamed down his whiskered cheek. He gave the floor one last rap and suddenly the floor opened up, revealing a staircase. Naruto looked down the dark tunnel and decided to take a look. He went down the stairs and found it to be an underground shrine. On the walls were pictures covered in dust. Naruto brushed the dirt off and found himself staring at a grumpy-looking man wearing samurai armor and carrying two swords with curved hilts staring back at him. He had long hair and a square goatee. Naruto looked at the name tag and saw the name. It read, Arashir Uzumaki Shodai Gufukage, First Hurricane Shadow. Naruto looked down and saw just one more unfinished picture. But from what he could see, it was a man with hair and a beard reading with a comforting smile. Naruto looked past the tunnel and walked down. He ended up in a wide room filled with what seemed to be empty except for two things: a neatly folded note and a scroll. Naruto bent down and carefully grabbed the two objects. They too shot black lines at Naruto just like the doorknob did. Naruto gritted his teeth and waited patiently for the lines to recede once more. After the black lines disappeared, Naruto carefully observed the note and discovered it was stained with blood. Naruto carefully unfolded the note and began to read it. Greetings, Uzumaki. My name is Uzushio, Swirling Tides, Uzumaki Naidame, second, Gufukage of Yuzushogakure, village hidden among the whirlpools, in the Yuzu no Kuni, land of whirlpools. I don't have much time left, but here goes. I may be the last Uzumaki. Listen, I know you're probably scared, but listen. Everything that once belonged to the Uzumaki has been left to you, and I want you to know that this is the birthplace of the Uzumaki clan. In the scroll, undo the storage seal and you will find a book on our FUINJUTSU. We used to have many books on our FUINJUTSU, but unfortunately, before I could get to it, part of it burned. I was only able to save enough to give you one of our FUINJUTSU, so use it wisely. Please take care of yourself and never let your guard down for even a second. The enemies of the Uzumaki are many. I am losing a lot of blood. I won't be able to keep writing. I just want to know that your family will always be with you no matter where you are. I have to go. They're looking for me, but remember, they're always watching you. Naruto looked at the note one last time before gently folding it and putting it in his pocket. He then bent down and picked up the book and scroll as if they were treasure, which they were and are. Naruto left the room, but not before giving it one last look before leaving. Naruto squinted against the bright sunlight as he walked out of the old house. As soon as he stepped out, he was surrounded by several villagers who tried to get a glimpse of Naruto and shake his hand. Naruto looked around and found his team standing with Tsunade and his daughter. Naruto walked up to them while doing his best to avoid the villagers and smiled. So, how are you feeling? Tsunade asked with an answering smile. I feel at home, Naruto said, and with those little words, Naruto rose into the air as the people began to cheer for the Uzumaki clan. XXX. After a while, Naruto managed to get away from the villagers, saying he needed time to adjust to the situation. Naruto looked up at the sky and started walking, not paying attention to where he was going until he bumped into someone. When he got up and looked at who he bumped into, Naruto found himself looking at a beautiful girl. I'm sorry. I should have seen where I was going, Naruto said. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. The girl's eyes widened as she looked at Naruto and a look of surprise crossed her eyes, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. My name is Haku, Haku said, laughing as he knew what Naruto thought he was. And I'm a boy. This surprised Naruto beyond belief. So what are you doing here? He laughed at Naruto's antics. Trying to think, Naruto said, recovering from his shock. I realized my clan was from somewhere nearby. Haku feigned shock. Really? What clan is that? Haku said. I'm afraid I can't say. Naruto leaned back and lay down on the soft grass. Let me guess. Haku looked at Naruto. You're from the Uzumaki clan. Naruto stood up and looked at Haku with a slightly squinty look, remembering what Uzushio had said in his note. Don't trust anyone. The Uzumaki have many enemies. Don't worry. I have no qualms with the Uzumaki clan. Haku told him. Naruto cautiously lowered himself to the ground and looked at Haku, suspicion still evident in his obvious caution. Haku decided to try and get to know Naruto better. Tell me, what do you want to be when you grow up, and do you have something you want to protect? Haku asked and saw Naruto think about narrowing down his answer. After a couple of minutes, Naruto finally spoke. Well, I want to be Hokage, Naruto said with a smile. And I have several things I want to protect, but the main thing is that I want to protect my friends. And you guys. Naruto asked. Haku watched as she saw the determination in Naruto's eyes. She decided Naruto would probably do anything to help his friends. Haku stared into the trees as she thought about her answer. Well, I have someone I want to protect, and my dream is to help him make his dream come true. Haku said with a gentle smile, and Naruto nodded at Haku's answer. What are you doing here? Naruto asked with a smile. I'm gathering herbs to help my precious self get better, Haku said as she continued searching for the herbs she needed. Maybe I can help, Naruto offered as Haku got busy. Haku turned to him, thought about it, and then nodded. Haku handed him the herb he was looking for, and Naruto created 3 clones to go and retrieve the herbs. Within a few minutes, Haku's basket was filled to the brim. Thank you, Naruto, Haku said to Naruto with a polite bow, turned around and left the area. Naruto turned around and started walking back to the village. As he walked towards the village, he couldn't help but smile. Naruto looked around the room at all the people smiling at him. The people here had almost nothing, and yet they were happy to try and give Naruto what little they had. Naruto politely declined, having noticed they needed it more. Sakura and Kakashi were actually happy that Naruto had found his clan's old home. Sasuke, on the other hand, kept his face emotionless, but every now and then his eyes would harden when he heard someone praising Naruto. Sasuke just didn't understand why Naruto was so popular when he was doing nothing. Ever since the villagers found out that Naruto was actually the sole survivor of the once powerful clan, people constantly surrounded him. Naruto was always seen with a smile ever since he returned from his old home and seemed to radiate happiness as the villagers, both young and old, surrounded him, eager to talk to the sole survivor of the legendary clan. Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura had nothing to do, so Kakashi had decided right then and there to train everyone in chakra control. Instantly, Naruto's happy smile turned into a slight frown. Why do we need this? Naruto asked in a bored tone. Because it will help you control your chakra and help you avoid dying just from overusing it. The answer made Naruto look down at the ground with a resentful pout. Ever since the chakra depletion incident, Kakashi had been watching him like a hawk. Whenever Naruto went to make a new seal and test it, Kakashi was always there watching. Once, when Naruto got annoyed, he asked Kakashi why he was staring at him, and the answer he got was simple. I don't want you to get hurt, came the monotonous reply. Now, what I want you to do is climb a tree. Everyone looked at Kakashi as if they thought he was crazy or something. Naruto and Sasuke snorted at the obvious ease of the task. But without using your hands. This wiped the smiles off both of their faces. What? That's not possible. Naruto complained loudly. With a sigh, Kakashi began channeling chakra into his feet. Kakashi walked over to a nearby tree, and when his face was only a foot away from the bark, he placed 1 foot on the tree and proceeded to walk along the bark. What were you saying, Naruto? Kakashi raised an eyebrow at Naruto. Now what you need to do is put chakra into the soles of your feet and start climbing up the tree. You need to keep your chakra level because if you put too much in, you'll break the tree and fall, too little and you won't catch the tree and fall. Also, if you feel like you're about to fall while climbing the tree, mark where you were with a kunai. Kakashi watched as the group looked at each other and then at the tree. The 3 of them poured chakra into their feet and ran toward the tree. As expected, Naruto was the first to fall after putting too little chakra into his feet. But then Sasuke fell when he put too much chakra and it began to break the bark. This is easy. A voice came from the tree. They looked up and saw Sakura sitting high on a branch, smiling. Well, it seems the only girl on this entire team has the best chakra control, Kakashi said with a smile. He looked over and saw determination in Naruto and Sasuke's eyes. Naruto and Sasuke ran towards the tree again, and this time they climbed a little higher, but still not high enough. Sasuke fell when he accidentally let his chakra slip and Kakashi wasn't surprised. But the way Naruto fell made Kakashi feel a little dizzy. As soon as Naruto took his next step, the entire tree split in half without warning. Naruto fell and hit his head on the ground. When Naruto looked up after shaking his head, he saw the top half of the tree falling towards him. Naruto reached for the bandages on his neck, but before his fingers could touch the end of them, the tree was tackled by a very large bulldog. Naruto laid his head back on the ground and sighed in relief as Kakashi approached. How about you try not to break the tree in half? Kakashi laughed humorously as he helped his student up. Naruto just mumbled and went to another tree. Kakashi watched as Naruto continued the tree exercise once more, and even though he kept falling, he was slowly improving. Kakashi decided to lean against a tree and read his book while watching his students train. Sakura finally stopped to rest after 3 climbs. Sasuke and Naruto kept repeating the cycle of trying to climb and falling. Sakura looked at Sasuke and opened her mouth to say something, but stopped when she noticed the look he gave her. It wasn't a cold look, but it clearly told her he didn't need or want her help. Naruto was lying on the ground looking up at the tree and noticed a pattern forming. I take 3 steps forward and then 2 steps back. Naruto thought as he bit his lip thinking about what he hadn't tried yet. Then he remembered how Sakura climbed the tree so easily. Naruto stood up and looked around for a certain pink-haired kunoichi. Sakura was staring at the ground with nothing to do when a shadow blocked out the sun. Naruto was standing over her with a nervous smile. "Hey Sakura, could you help me?" Sakura opened her mouth to tell Naruto no, but then realized he was actually asking for her help. He wants my help, Sakura thought. Okay, sure, Naruto. I'll help you out a little. Kakashi saw this and smiled beneath his mask. Looks like he's finally getting there, Kakashi thought as he returned to his book. Naruto smiled when Sakura finally explained what he was doing wrong and how he could fix it. He approached the tree and ran up at once, this time applying what Sakura taught him. He found himself climbing almost as high as Sasuke before slipping and starting to fall, but Naruto performed a quick body roll and landed gracefully on the ground. "Dinner's ready." Tsunami's voice echoed through the forest. That caught everyone's attention as they started walking toward the house. XXX. Everyone sat at the table and watched with amused expressions as the Uzumaki devoured his food as if he hadn't eaten in days. Sakura finally had enough and hit Naruto on the head. "What was that for?" came the reply. "You're acting like an animal," he said with a face. "Slow down, will you?" "Sorry, I can't. I have to hurry up and finish that tree climbing exercise." Naruto said this as he threw his head into the bowl, and the group around the table thought they could see the food trying to escape Naruto's wrath. Sakura just shook her head in amusement, and Kakashi smiled under his mask. Then, a voice spoke. "Look at yourself," Inari said with a hint of anger in her voice. Naruto looked up from his food. He wiped the food stains off his mouth with a napkin, and his goofy expression suddenly disappeared. Inari continued as if he hadn't noticed anything. "You call yourself a ninja, but you're nothing but a joke. You can't defeat a man like Gato. He'll just hire stronger people to look after you, even if you're from a clan he can't beat." No. That was when Naruto had enough. His expression hardened, and his crystalline eyes held a steely gleam. "Look at you crying like a baby." Naruto's voice was devoid of emotion. "You think you have it hard. I had to live my life in fear, looking behind me every few seconds thinking someone was going to attack me. I won't sugarcoat it. You had it pretty rough, but you had a family to help you through the tough times. Me? I had no one but myself. Then, when I finally met someone and found out they cared about me, they got killed right in front of my eyes. So don't come crying to me about how bad you had it, because I live my life in hell every day. If you have a problem with your life, do something about it. Don't just sit there and cry." With that, Naruto got up from the table and walked towards the door, leaving a crying Inari behind. "Naruto, you went too far," Sakura said, standing up. Sakura opened her mouth to say more, but stopped when Naruto turned around. Naruto's eyes seemed to have lost their usual light. Without replying, he simply walked out the door and closed it, leaving the room in an awkward silence. Inari got up and walked out onto the porch with Kakashi following him. You know what Naruto said back there was his way of talking about motivation, Kakashi said to Inari crying as he sat down. "Why?" Inari asked with a low whimper. "Why are you trying so hard?" At this, she received a sigh from the Jonin. "It's just who he is," Kakashi told her. "He's treated so badly in our village that he was stuck at a crossroads. Either keep letting people do this or try to do something about it. He made his choice and never looked back. I think in all my time I've been with him and seen him, I've only seen him cry once, and that was when a very good friend of his died. but that only made him stronger than ever, so please don't make Naruto out to be the bad guy. Whatever he said there, it was in hopes of making you better. Kakashi finished. Inari stopped crying and looked at Kakashi with a small smile. Kakashi then stood up and watched Inari's retreating figure as Inari walked toward his house. XXX. Naruto was in the forest drawing a bunch of tags to replace the old ones when a noise behind him caught his attention. When he looked over, he saw Inari looking at him with an embarrassed look. "Look, I'm sorry for what I said," came the timid voice. "You don't need to apologize," Naruto said in a level voice. "Let's move on." Inari nodded and looked over Naruto's shoulder to see what he was doing. "What are you doing?" Inari asked, confused by what Naruto was doing. "I'm trying to figure out how to extend the use of a certain barrier seal I have," Naruto said before putting everything into a scroll. "Come on, let's go get something to eat." Inari just smiled and started walking back home with Naruto by her side. XXX. Naruto sat looking at the tree and saw that he was almost at the top. When he woke up, he found that his team had left him to guard Tsunade's house in case anyone tried anything to hurt them. Naruto decided to spend his time exercising at the tree and kept a Kage Bunshin in the house in case anything went wrong. Naruto sat down when the clone's memories suddenly flooded back. "Damn!" Naruto cursed as he ran towards the house. XXX. "Look, this isn't personal, but Gato doesn't want the bridge finished," Waraji said as he held his sword to Inari's throat. "Now, why don't you come and cooperate with us, little one?" Tsunade looked nervously between the two swordsmen and nodded. Zora stepped forward to secure her, but was forced to dodge when a giant shuriken came toward her. She looked and saw a black silhouette against the blinding sun. "Who the hell are you?" Zora yelled. "Me? I'm nobody," the voice said in a lifeless tone. Zora's eyes widened as he was struck in the chest with a static beam. Waraji swung his sword to try and kill Inari, but his sword never connected. A small blue shield appeared in front of Inari, and the sword bounced harmlessly off the shield. "Did you really think I'd leave these two defenseless? Before I left, I placed 2 of my barrier seals on them," a muffled voice told them quietly. Waraji turned around just in time to receive a roundhouse kick that hit him directly in the face. Tsunade smiled as she looked at Naruto, but her smile disappeared when she noticed that the goofy expression that was usually on Naruto's face was gone and seriousness took its place. Naruto clasped his hands and created 2 Kage Bunshins. "Take the swordsmen out of here and tie them up." The clones nodded and followed his instructions. When the 4 were out of Naruto's sight, Naruto broke his stern expression with a smile and looked at Inari and Tsunade. "Are you both okay?" Inari and Tsunade nodded in response. "Okay. Listen, I'm gonna head to the bridge. I think the others are going to need help. I'm leaving 4 clones here for your protection. Okay?" Naruto created 2 more clones and ran toward the bridge.